But wait, what if I get assigned early? This is one of the questions that I get asked all the time by new option sellers. It is definitely one of the most common fears that they have. But here's the twist. Early assignment is not actually the monster under the bed that we all believe it to be. In fact, sometimes it's a gift. Let me show you why. If somebody exercises a call option with a 200 strike, it just means that they now own 100 shares of whatever company at the $200 price mark. One option contract equals 100 shares. It's that simple. Now, if an option's in the money at expiration, it's going to be exercised because there is something called intrinsic value, meaning that if the option were to be exercised, there is a realized value to be had for the person who bought the option. But early exercising is actually rarer than you would think. That's because options are actually made up of two things: intrinsic value and extrinsic value, or the time value of the option. Now, if somebody exercises early, meaning they're converting that option into stock or converting it into its intrinsic value, what happens to all that extrinsic value? They're actually giving it up. And that's why in most cases, when you're long an option and you want to close the position, it makes more sense to sell the option rather than exercising it. When you sell an option, you have an obligation to fulfill that contract if it's exercised. If the buyer exercises it, that means you're going to get assigned and you'll need to deliver 100 shares of whatever underlying in that call option example. That's really all assignment is. It's just the other side of that trade. It's nothing magical. But here's the scenario that people panic about. Let's say they sell a $200 strike option for $5. The stock goes up to $210 and it still has a few days to expiration left, and that option is now worth $11. $10 of intrinsic value and $1 of extrinsic value. And if you get assigned early, you're going to lose that $10 and then you're going to be short a bunch of shares. But here's the thing that most people miss. That option was worth $11. What happens to that $1 of time value that was remaining? So for that option buyer, it actually would have been better if they just sold the option. But because they chose to exercise it, that extrinsic value is no longer there, and it just goes straight into the pocket of the seller. Now, there's a second fear that people have, though, where even if they understand the situation, they say to me, but wait, what if I get assigned and I don't have the shares? And that's a totally fair question, but it's not a major problem, and here's why. You remember back when you sold the option, your broker made you post margin? Well, that margin you posted is there to cover this exact scenario. So if you're assigned, guess what'll happen? You'll just end up short 100 shares and your margin will be utilized. And all you need to do when that happens is go into the market and buy 100 shares. You're now back to neutral, and you just got to pocket that extrinsic value. That's it. It's not a huge disaster. It's just a part of selling options. Now, here's where it can go wrong, though. Let's say you do get assigned and you decide to do nothing. Now you're just sitting there holding a big stock position. You're not actually running that option trade that you originally wanted to be. You're now just long or short a bunch of delta. And that means your P&L is going to move simply with the stock price. Now, the fix for this is simple. If you get assigned, just close out the trade. It doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. Now, obviously, getting that extrinsic value if somebody assigns early sounds really good, but I will mention this. Don't build your strategies around early assignment, please. It's nice when it happens, but it's really rare, and it usually happens very close to expiration, meaning the extrinsic value that remains is pennies usually. It's very small. So think of it as a very small win when it happens and not actually a strategy to trade. You know, it's another situation where early assignment is not a bad thing. When you get assigned a free trial with Predicting Alpha. Yeah, that was awful, but we do run 5 systematic option selling strategies that all have a bunch of evidence to prove why they work. And if you want to see them, just click the link in the description and you can get assigned a free trial with us. So to wrap all this up, early assignment is really rare, but when it does happen, it doesn't need to be the end of the world. You're going to get a little bit of extrinsic value, and the only real risk is if you don't do anything about it. The longer you leave your delta exposure on, the more influence you'll have from just what happens to the underlying stock. And that's really not what we're trying to do as option sellers. So just close the position, stay in control, and keep executing your plan. That's all it takes to overcome early assignment. And if you want help building a real plan of what strategies to trade, click the link and take a free trial with us. I'm telling you, it'll be one of the best decisions for your option selling that you make. Happy trading, everyone. See you in the next video.